Hi, welcome to Freedom Friday. Today's topic, what is shoulder bursitis? And who am I? I'm Bruce Paulick. I've been a musculoskeletal and shoulder physiotherapist for over 40 years, mainly rehabilitating shoulders, helping people rehabilitate their own shoulders. So my special interests have always been in the shoulder and surrounding areas, the neck and the upper back, because they play an important part in the function of the shoulder. So, what are we going to cover today? What is a shoulder bursa, and where is it? What can go wrong with this bursa? And what are the symptoms of bursitis that you might be experiencing? And importantly, why only treating the inflammation is not a cure. So what and where is the bursa in the shoulder? Well, the bursa sits, as we can see in this diagram, it sits under the acromion process, the bone at the top, and over the rotator cuff tendons and the head of the humerus below that again. So what is it? It's a very thin-walled sac with a very slippery lubricant inside. And its function is to reduce the friction between the humeral head as it comes up and the acromion process. So bursae occur all over your body, wherever you have things rubbing against each other, like a tendon crossing a bone or two tendons crossing each other. The body produces a bursa. So in case of the shoulder, the subacromial bursa, the one we're talking about here that we can see in blue on the screen, it reduces that friction, especially when you take your arm up to the side. So what is bursitis of this shoulder bursa? Well, bursitis, anywhere in your body, is where that bursa becomes inflamed. The walls of that bursa, instead of being really thin, can become thickened, and the fluid inside the bursa can increase dramatically. So whenever that inflamed bursa now gets compressed, again, like when you lift your arm up to the side, it's going to cause pain, and sometimes a lot of pain. So bursitis can also be connected with inflammation of the rotator cuff tendons. I'll come back to that. That's an important point. So it usually occurs because there's been impingement that's catching against the bursa and the tendons underneath the bursa. So what are some of the symptoms you might be feeling with bursitis? Well, typically an aching pain over the outside of the or top of the shoulder, quite often radiating into the upper arm, so much so that people sometimes tell me that, oh, it's not my shoulder, it's the muscles in the arm that are the problem. So there'll be pain lifting your arm, especially lifting it up to the side. And people will often report getting jabs of pain when they try and put a jacket on or reach behind them for something. Or pain at night when they try and lie on that side. That's a common symptom. It does not like the shoulder being squished together when you lie on your shoulder at night. It comes up and compresses that bursa. And of course, any quick, unguarded movements can give you sharp twinges. So what causes this bursitis, this painful condition that we hear about so often? Well, most commonly it occurs alongside rotator cuff problems. That's weakness of the rotator cuff or tendonitis, or in fact tears, even small tears of the rotator cuff. The rotator cuff will get weaker, and as the rotator cuff gets weaker, the humeral head rises up against the bone and squishes against the bursa. So poor shoulder biomechanics are also implicated. So if you've spent your day slouching, hunched forward in front of a computer, you're going to end up with a stiff lower neck and upper back and shoulder stiffness. So that posture and that stiffness combined end up creating more pressure on the bursa when you go to use your arm. So, and repetitive strain. So I'm talking now about overhead activities you're not accustomed to. You spend the day out in the garden pruning overhead trees and branches, and then that night your shoulder is really complaining. But of course, sudden trauma, like a direct blow to the shoulder or landing hard on the shoulder, playing sport, funnily enough, that's not the most common reason, it's probably the least common reason why people present with a bursitis. So the important thing I want you to get from today's little chat is that the bursa can get inflamed from all sorts of reasons. People ask me, if I have an injection of cortisone into the shoulder, into the bursa, and it takes away the inflammation, how long is that going to last? Well, the answer is it'll last until those pre-existing problems cause the bursitis to come back. So treating the bursitis is not an answer, because you're only treating a symptom of sometimes several underlying problems. Those underlying problems need to be addressed. Otherwise, your bursitis will be a recurring problem, and you can't keep taking anti-inflammatory medication or jabbing it with cortisone to hope that that will somehow solve your problem. Anyway, lots more in future on these topics of what you can do about these underlying issues. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.